Hi, Francis Sedeko with TIRIAS Research. I'm here in New York City for Qualcomm's Investor Day with Nakul Duggal, who's the Group GM for Auto, Industrial IoT, and Cloud.
That's right.
Cloud. I got it this time. So, one of the stories here at Investor Day and one of the big themes for Qualcomm is the diversification strategy and how you guys are executing so well on that. A big part of that, obviously, is automotive, which you lead up. And I think the auto business for Qualcomm, I think one of the big numbers is $45 billion design win pipeline over the next few years. Uh, it's grown significantly under your leadership, and I think it's relatively speaking been under the radar. So, kind of just wanted to get your thoughts. First of all, it's a very notoriously difficult market to crack, a lot of entrenched competitors in there. How were you able to steer the group in Qualcomm to start attacking this market?
Yeah, no, good to see you again,
Yeah,
Francis.
likewise. Thanks.
I think maybe the best way to think about it is you start with technology, you understand why you are relevant to a specific market. You think about inflection points in that specific market. Are you prepared for it? And then why would somebody trust you? Why would somebody be willing to bet on you? Especially since in our case, we didn't really have any history in the market.
Yeah,
And so it requires, really uh, being very stubborn. You kind of just have to keep going.
yeah,
I think for us, what is really interesting about automotive is that it's actually a very complicated product. It's a product that we all use. It's a consumer product, but it's not really a consumer product because the complexity involved in building a car is probably one of the most complex products and one of the most complex industries, which for a company like us is actually something that we embrace because we know that not many people will be able to go as deep as we have. Like, I'll give you an example. We started working on automated driving in 2015
uh,
when didn't even we didn't even really know if we were serious about automotive. So that gives you a sense as to why would we want to go focus on automated driving when we were not focused on automotive. And that's
right.
kind of the culture of the company. So for us, what was more interesting was that uh, these are technologies that will help shape what we might end up doing in the future. And so you make a bet on a specific technology trend because it's going to teach you a lot. Now, 10 years later, we are designing our silicon based upon experiences that we have been building and learning and developing over the last decade. Uh, I think as customers start to understand these things, and it takes a long time because these companies are foreign to us, we are foreign to them. This is not an industry that trusts easily for good reason.
Yeah,
But once you are kind of past that point, then you become more a partner than you are a supplier. I think the other part that we have noticed is because the complexion of automotive is changing so quickly, because there are so many new entrants, because there are companies that know us uh, from other markets that have entered the space. I think that trust factor is certainly increasing. I think the other piece is I think what we benefit from is that the incumbents, while entrenched, had very limited technology expertise. So their focus was, one or two specific product segments. Automotive was the center of their portfolio. For us, automotive is one of many things that we do. And I think maybe the other piece that is obvious to us, but has taken the industry some time to recognize and understand, is as a digital product, the automotive industry doesn't really know everything that it will need to be able to be successful at it. Because think about it, it's a product that runs in the edge. You have to support it for 10 plus years. Power consumption is very important. You have to deal with digital tech ecosystems.
yeah,
You have to deal with quality. You have to deal with process node complexity, supply resilience, global footprint across 160 countries, software. No, there are not many companies that do
That can
these
do
types of
that.
things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
look, if I were to go back and say, hey, would we do all of these things again differently? Would we be able to do it? I don't think so, because you really have to, like I said yesterday, build it brick by brick. You don't know what the next step is going to be, but you really have to plan for it, because it's the obvious thing to go do. And once you do it, it's appreciated by a customer, because they know that you're thinking about things before they're thinking about them.
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned building it brick by brick and then building that trust too. Can you point to a maybe, I don't know, either something that happened, or a point in time where you said, okay, this is where we broke in. This is where we got that first piece of trust, or where a company gave us a chance, and what was the situation around it?
Yeah. Uh, I remember we had a meeting at CES in 2012, when Audi came to us and said, hey, we've been using your modems, and we think that your Snapdragon processors are something that we can really use in our vehicles. And so we were, you know, we were taken aback. We were never really thinking about Snapdragon in the car.
Okay. Yeah.
So they thought about what our products could do before we thought about it.
Yeah.
And we deployed Snapdragon in Audis in September of 2016. So they gave us a chance. It wasn't really a big business. It wasn't. I mean, the size of the opportunity was not all that large. On the other hand, it gave us a path to getting into a new market.
Yeah.
Internally, it was challenging, because we didn't really have much other business other than that one design. Maybe I think we had two.
I mean,
designs.
you had like
we
the
also had
on-track
Honda
stuff,
Yeah.
in the back in the
So we had
early
business on the
days.
telematics side.
Yeah.
But when it
Yeah.
came to Snapdragon, we didn't really have
Right.
many other designs. So I think we had two designs. We had a design with Honda, and we had the design with Audi. So we ran dry for 4+ years, 5 years almost. And I think internally, what that meant was, we had to get the organization to believe that this market was a real market.
Yeah.
And that's tough when the market is brand new to you.
Yeah.
But externally, what we learned later was that everybody was waiting and watching to see how the Audi risk would pay off. Would
Interesting.
Audi actually commercialize it? Because
Yeah.
the challenge, there is so much of what is called infant mortality in this business.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so hard to be able to see this through. And it's not just the technical part of the challenge; it's the organization having the patience to be able to see it through. So we prevailed. We were able to kind of stick it out. And I think I remember, after the Audi win, within 3 or 4 months, we won like 5 designs in quick succession.
Wow.
Which we had been planning for and planting for a long time.
Yeah.
But we had no way of knowing whether we would be awarded or not. It was pretty clear that the market was waiting for somebody to take the risk on us.
Interesting.
And so, I think the learning was, you kind of have to do the right thing when it comes to the technology, the architecture, listen to your customers, pay attention to the things that they really care about: safety, quality, reliability. And once you do those things, they're complex, but it's like anything that is hard. Once you do it for a long time and it becomes natural, customers will bet on you, because they want to be able to work with suppliers they can trust.
Yeah. So you mentioned the internal struggles. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask about that. I mean, how difficult was it to internally convince the business that, hey, this is a real opportunity for us? Because I'm sure the diversification strategy probably came after that, once you guys realized, you know what, there's probably other things we can do here. But that seminal moment when when this all happened. How difficult was that to get buy-in internally as a high level executive?
I wasn't very high level then, but
You are now because of this.
I think it was one of these things where I think first of all the team I think was very important because when you work on something on a continuous basis for a long period of time, you have appreciation for it that only you can understand. I think it's hard for folks that are not close to it to appreciate the complexity. What you feel in your gut is likely to happen. So most of the complexity was around proving to management, proving to peers, proving to colleagues that this was real. Uh, and automotive is not, automotive is foreign to Qualcomm. It's the farthest thing from what we have done in our history at scale. And so mostly it was about not the fact that it was an opportunity that we could be successful at, but why should we believe the team? If you recall, that was also the time when we were looking to buy an XP.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one of the bets that the company was making was, hey, let's go diversify by acquiring somebody that already has this
Yeah.
capability. So not only was it complicated to convince uh, the organization internally about why we would be successful, but why the products that we already have in the company organically are relevant to this market. And it kind of tells you a little bit about you know understanding very deeply the capability of the products that you build. I mean, we announced our 5th-generation SoCs last month. You were in Maui with us.
Yeah.
And the rate at which we have moved shows you that the confidence that the company has in a new market, once it's been proven, is very high. But the escape velocity that is needed to be able to get to that point, it really requires, and frankly, I mean, the team, I think that we have built super resilient team. Because I think with these types of things, I think what ends up happening is that you kind of have to wait to get to scale. And if it were easy, it wouldn't take you so long.
Right.
And because it is difficult, the teams know how much work it is going to go take. So the level of resilience that teams have to be able to do something new. Like, for example, we've been spending a lot of time on ADAS over the last 4 or 5 years. Nobody is confused about the fact that it's going to take a long time.
Right.
Nobody is confused about the fact that this is hard. So that, I think, is a skill that you end up building that you can only build if you actually live through it.
Yeah.
And and the process of living through it requires you to be able to get to what I call escape velocity. You just have to kind of experience it. There's no other way to go do it. There are no shortcuts to it. So I think the hardest part internally was to convince the larger organization that not only was this business a good business for the company, but that this team would make us successful at this business.
So that's interesting because as we do the diversification strategy and you guys are pulling out, I mean, it seems like a lot of it falls under you. You've almost been tapped as the guy that cracks the shelf for Qualcomm. You've got IoT, which has a lot of similarities in terms of it's a notoriously difficult market. Probably the bigger issue with IoT is the fragmentation, which you guys are starting to address. And then probably soon after that, the next gear for you is cloud and data center. And that's probably more of still in the same phase where auto was when you guys were still trying to figure out, whether to really go after it. So when you look at IoT, look at cloud, and so forth, one, does it make it easier now to internally convince people because of your success in auto? And two, what have you learned from cracking the auto nut that you can maybe bring to bear in these other areas?
It does make it easier,
Yeah.
I must admit. Uh, what I think worked really well, I think in auto was, first of all, there was no distraction. It
Yeah.
was the only thing that the team focused on, that I focused on for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And when you are not distracted, what really comes down to is, are you patient? Do you listen well? Uh, can you take risks? Do you surround yourself with people internally and externally who, have, who are your well-wishers, who want to see you successful? And uh, I think that was a skill that I think we honed when we started to build the auto business. I think with IoT, uh, I think the differences are, I think, like you said, first of all, it's fragmented. But with these types of things, the first thing that I look at is, why us? Why would we be relevant? What makes us different? What makes us special?
Mm-hmm.
And when you ask yourself that question, then you immediately look at the market and say, what about this market is going to make us relevant, and in what window of time? And I think, it's just happenstance. It's, we have AI that is upon us. It's getting to scale. Nobody can ignore it. Uh, it's going to happen despite what we do or don't do. And so those are very good inflection points. Those are very good, tailwinds that we need to pay attention to. And then it's really about preparing to participate, to take advantage of, to partner, to find the right trajectory, to hedge yourself. And so the approach that I've taken with IoT is participate across many different trends so that you make yourself highly relevant. You don't get distracted by windows within which things have to happen, because they're all going to take kind of their own unique time. Very difficult to predict these things. But then also at some level, become an evangelist and define for the market. And that's the one thing that we learned obviously through the automotive experience was, in the absence of clarity, be clear yourself. Here's kind of our vision for what we think is possible. And then what ends up happening is, once you state your vision, people listen to you and say, well, I agree with you, or I don't agree with you.
But
And
then the
that you
debate
can
and the
test very
discussion
quickly. That's all.
happens. Yeah.
One of the important things with IoT is, how do you calibrate the market for, do you have this in focus, or are you not getting it?
Yeah.
And so I've spent the last 8-9 months on just that. You know, are we seeing it the right way?
Yeah.
Do people actually align with it? And I feel like we are actually more or less seeing it the right way. So as we do that, then the next step is the actions that you take. Talk is cheap. So what are you going to do next? Yeah. And like with any other market, we're a large company. If we were to ask for a meeting with, any of the top industrial players anywhere in the world, we would certainly be granted that meeting. So then the question is, what are the steps that we will then take next? And then that's the plan, that's the how, how do you become relevant? And that to me is almost, frankly, the easier part, because then it is, and I say easier, but relatively, in the sense that you have to execute. Then this is the job that you have to go do. Right. We put some numbers out yesterday, and we're going to walk into those numbers. We're going to go come up with a plan that allows us to get there. And so that's just discipline. It's just execute to a plan.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, just like internally, it probably the auto success probably helped externally. I'm sure it's probably helping as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a couple of quick hits. Going back to just auto before we close it out here. There's a lot of changes going on auto, right? You've got the change to zonal architecture, separate but related, the change to SDV. And then even trends like CV2X, and between that as a solution versus just localized sensors and maybe even V2V to some extent. How do you see these trends going on? First of all, is it going as quickly as you expect, or is it going to at the speed that you expect? Maybe not quickly, but at the speed that you're expecting. Is CV2X still happening, or is the trend more, hey, let's get the localized sensors, as good as possible, and then maybe enhance that with some V2V? What what are some of your thoughts around these shifts?
So V2X, as a technology, China is deploying it today. It requires a few things to be in place. I think first of all, uh, there has to be a regulation. There has to be support from the local. Uh, you know, the there, there has to be a local or regional mandate for it.
Mm,
Because it requires infrastructure support, it requires frequency allocation, it requires uh, the safety aspect of it to be something that people are going to accept as a mandate. And because those decisions are all made independently across various markets, various jurisdictions, there is a level of complexity, but I think we are past that level of complexity. So I think people understand the technology, people understand what the value add is, how to go implement it, and that's kind of what we're in the middle of. The pace at which it gets deployed is like with anything else. You kind of have to see the deployment. It's going to take a few years. People are going to get comfortable with it, and then before you know it, it will
it
just kind
just
of be there,
Yeah,
and you won't even realize
yeah,
why you did not have it in place for a long time. But I think the difference with V2X is that it's a non-line of sight sensor,
you're right.
and that makes it a bit unique compared to other types of sensing capabilities. So it has its own proving to go do in terms of its relevance and how broadly, etc. And then there is the wait and watch element of it, which is I'm going to watch you deploy it, see what your results are before I take the risk
Yeah,
myself. There is also an infrastructure element to V2X, which makes it more complex in that while infrastructure capable V2X adds tremendous amount of benefit, it's also complex because you now have to be able to bring in different dimensions
yeah,
into the conversation. Uh, so I think I would say for technology that is highly complex and is going to make a big impact in terms of improving safety, we are pretty happy with how far
it's gone.
how it's gone, and we are in that window now in the next, I would say, over the course of the rest of the decade, where we're going to start to see deployments start to take off.
Okay. So maybe just to finish out, you obviously have developed a lot of capability, from an executive level in breaking these into these areas. What advice would you give to other executives out there who are facing similar challenges with trying to, disrupt existing markets, or break into markets that maybe is adjacent to what their company normally does?
I think there is probably no one set answer,
Yeah.
but I think you really have to. Uh, I kind of call it the macro micro strategy. You have to be myopically focused on what is in front of you,
Right.
and you have to nail that. And you have to look very far out because you have to have something that allows you to be able to wake up in the morning and tell yourself, this is why
Mm.
I care about it. And then I think, be clever about the types of things that you want to go focus on. Pick markets that are interesting, complicated, will allow you to build a moat, will be tough in the beginning, but will allow you to be able to, establish yourself. And, I think once you start to go do it, it kind of becomes fairly natural. Like
Yeah.
you want to pick things that are complicated because you know that it's going to require you to think hard, uh, build something that is going to be lasting. And I think the rest of it is, I mean, pick a good team. I think that's a very important lesson in that the people that you surround yourself with will really dictate whether you win or you lose. So
Perfect. Well, thanks for taking the time with me. I
thank
know
you.
you've been doing a lot of back to back
Thank
over
you
the
very
last
much.
couple of days. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Nakul.
Good to
And
see you.
yeah, likewise. And until next time. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.